today. The first one is, raise your hand if you use a to-do list. Anyone? All right, me too. You know what's cool about a to-do list? Is you make it on Monday, and it is still good on Friday. Because one, you either didn't do anything, or you just kept adding to the list. So I don't know about you, but this is how my list usually goes. I write the list, then I read the list, and then I panic and procrastinate. How about you? There is sometimes it takes me all day long to get nothing done. So before I ask this next question, I need to remind you where we are. We are in a church. Now, it is never a good idea to lie, but it is especially not a good idea to lie when you're in a church. So answer this question for me. Have you ever did something that wasn't on the list, and then you put it on the list so you could check it off the list? Right? Me too. I am guilty. Those check marks give me a lot of joy and satisfaction. But here's the real question. How many of you could use a bit more joy in your life year-round? Me too. And that's what I promised by the time you walk out of these today, the doors today, and hopefully it's at the end of my speech and not during the middle of my 90-minute speech. But no, I'm just messing with you. I'll be out of here in like 10 minutes. But I do promise that I'm going to give you a technique that will bring a little bit more joy to your life each day, not just this Christmas season. Now you might be thinking, Dwayne, how can you be so sure about that? Well, if you've ever read my book or listened to any of my videos online, you know that I love to grow. I read all the time, I listen to podcasts all the time, and I say that it's better to be green and growing than to be ripe and rotten. Would you agree with that? So I picked up this technique from a book I read called High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. I love Brendon Burchard. Anything you can get a hold of his is great, and I've been to his live seminars before, so I believe what he has to tell me. So when I read this technique, I'm thinking, this sounds kind of dorky. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but you know what? I'll try it, I'll give it a test, and if it's worth passing on to you, well, then I'll do that. So I started this technique back in, it was May 12th of 2019. So not about the same year I spoke here before. And what the thing is I don't know, raise your hand if you have one of these smartphones. I'll bet most of you do. Well, did you know that you can set this thing to go off at a certain time? Now, aren't you glad you came today? I just told you something you know, and you're like, duh, I think I know how to do that already. But did you know that you can set these phones to go off at a certain location? Did anyone know that in here? Awesome. So what I did was I chose to set this to go off at a location. Now, at the time I started this, I was working right over here at Do It Best. So I set my phone to go off at 603 Crook Street, which was Do It Best. And I chose the 3 words, bring the joy. So what that means is every time I pull up to Do It Best, morning, noon, or night, my phone would chime and remind me to bring the joy. And you might be saying, Dwayne, well, what's the point of that? Well, when I show up at work, who needs me to bring the joy? My boss, Bonnie, needed me to bring the joy. You all were my customers. You needed me to bring the joy. But most of all, I needed me to bring the joy. So I tried this technique, set it up the 12th of May, and I pull into work and my phone would go off, bring the joy. And what this is, you guys, is it is just a good reminder of how to show up in the world. Because some of us, we show up like we're weaned on a pickle, right? And you know the kind. I mean, I call them the morale suppression team leaders. And they're the kind of people that when they leave, that's when happy hour starts. Now, we all know someone, and if they're sitting next to you, don't point, just blink real hard. I'll know who you're talking about. But so I set this on the 12th of May, and 8 days later, on the 20th of May, can you guess what I was doing over there at work? Shoveling snow. On the 20th of May, I was over there shoveling snow. I should have been out mowing my lawn, not shoveling snow on the 20th of May. Now, I usually show up at work with a pretty good attitude. Not all the time, but I'm telling you what, that day I was in a funk. And I was out there shoveling snow, and I'm going, I will bring the joy. I'll bring the joy. I'll bring the frickin' joy. And I stood out there, and I kept saying to myself, you don't need to go in there with your stinking thinking because you have an attitude problem, and they don't need you inside there until you get over your tude. And I shoveled a lot of snow that day. And I kept mumbling under my breath, bring the joy, bring the joy, bring the joy, bring the joy. And by the time I walked back in the store, I had a huge smile on my face. And I realized something. It worked! This dorky, simple technique worked. You have got to try this. So where do you suppose the second place that I set my phone to bring the joy at? When I get home from work. Because sometimes work isn't all that joyful, is it? Well, who needs me at my best when I get home? Nancy needs me at my best. She needs me to bring the joy when I come home. And the bacon, but mostly the joy. And now, men, I don't know, I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't know. This would be worth your price of admission for today. But your wife can hear better than you think she can. Because there are times that I'll be downstairs and Nancy will be upstairs and she'll hear my phone chime and she'll yell, "Bring the joy, honey!" And now what's really cool is I don't work over at Do It Best anymore, but every time, now I started this in 2019. I still do this every single day. And when I pull up to 1203 Pine Street, now I have a little Smarty Pants watch. And we pull in the garage the other day, and it says, "Bring the joy, 1203 Pine Street." And so I'll repeat it to Nancy. And I'm telling you that little technique will help you bring the joy more often. Because like I said earlier, what it does is it just puts you in that right frame of mind. It is not a cure-all, end-all. There are times where I'm not bringing so much joy, but more often than not, I am. And what I also did was I expanded it into different areas of my life personally, which you can do as well. So at night, I have 8 different reminders. I'm not going to rattle them all off because I will be here for 90 minutes. But I do, at 9 o'clock, I have a question that comes up and says, what is it in your life that you're not facing today? And then at 3 o'clock, which today will be really cool because I'll say, my phone asked me, what's been great today? And at 3 o'clock I'll be going, I'm done with my speech. Woohoo! And then to add on to that, for 12 years now, Nancy and I have done a gratitude journal where we write down 5 things at the end of the day that we're grateful for each day. And that helps you bring a lot of joy into your life as well. And the other thing that I've done, I wore the shirt today. I don't know if you can see it from back there, but it says, "Bring the joy." And if you've ever seen my videos before, you've probably seen this little Bring the Joy coffee cup just as a reminder to send out to the people to bring the joy. So I went hook, line, and sinker into the bring the joy. And I do promise you that if you try these kind of techniques and you do them every day and they develop into a habit, it will bring joy to you more often than just during the Christmas season. Thank you very much.